you're right to talk about or mention or allude to the amount of managers who've gone in somewhere after a big legacy manager and it's been tough. But from Alonso's point of view, he may not want to take it for granted. He may not think, if someone comes into Liverpool and they get it right and it's not him, that opportunity's gone.
So Man City beat Brentford 1-0 last night, moving 1 point behind Liverpool at the top of the Premier League. Erling Haaland has now scored against every Premier League team he has ever faced. And what I liked about the way that he defeated that particular demon in his mind, that he showed Christopher a bit of the ball. And Aya just got so excited he fell over.
Yeah.
He just collapsed. That's how he did. He went, "Do you want a bit of this? Whoa, you can't have it." And then he's
like
off.
a fucking human
off.
sandcastle.
Exactly.
I think he whispered that stat to him just really quickly.
He did, yeah. This is mine now.
Pete, I heard he was. I got a good authority. He was actually quietly humming the Match of the Day theme tune.
I mean, is that an impressive feat? I mean, it sounds like an impressive feat, but he's not been here for very long. So how many teams has he realistically played against? He's been injured for a couple of months as well.
I mean, it is impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's more impressive because he's not been here for that long. Surely, he's had very few
point,
bites at the cherry, isn't he? I think is it 22 teams, something like that.
But what if you come on as like a youth team player and you score a goal, and then that stat is also true for you as well?
It's true. It does get. I suppose it gets. It's like there's a curve to it. It gets more impressive the longer you're there.
Yes.
But then his defence will be, I've done it across 20 odd teams. So that is an amazing thing. And then obviously now he's going to find it very hard to improve on that record consistently because one, he's probably going to go somewhere else at some point. But before that, the teams, you don't refresh as many Premier League teams, do they? So, I mean, a couple of them that come up might have already been in the Premier League and he might have already scored against them. But
yeah, I mean, you'd be looking at like Leicester City, Leeds United, Ipswich, Southampton, West Brom. I mean, they are mainstays of the Premier League.
He'll be shitting himself about playing them, won't he?
If you are going to be taking that stat to your grave, I think you have to be aware that you really have to be beating those teams. You really have to be scoring against those teams.
On the game last night, it's sometimes amazing being a Premier League fan. Because the games are shit, but at least you can't watch them.
I actually went to France.
Yeah, to watch it.
Did you? Right, okay,
cheaper than getting a subscription for a month to Sky Sports.
Yeah, I'm exhausted. Really long night.
You could actually do that.
You could.
That's a YouTube video. That is waiting to happen. There's some young YouTuber will do that. Oh, I'm going to go get the Eurostar to Paris, watch the game, and then come back again.
I like
the only way I'll legally better do it.
I like the fact that your idea of a young YouTuber thing to do is to go to France on a nice train.
I'm big on YouTube for that reason. What I like to do with my YouTube channel, it's got about 15 subscribers and I don't do anything controversial.
Yeah.
It's just me having a nice sit down.
To be fair, that sounds absolutely
just charting
lovely.
the noises you make as you get older, maybe?
Yeah.
I think I'd subscribe to that.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that does definitely happen
Earwax
as you get
removal.
older, is you get you do make a lot of involuntary noises, and it invariably annoys your wife. But anyway, I was going to say that on the game last night, it was kind of a really interesting situation because, as I've mentioned, no one could watch it because it wasn't originally selected for TV and it was rescheduled, which to me is like the laziest rule ever. I mean, if Sky Sports, given they have to have all the cameras there anyway for highlights and all the rest of it, just broadcast it. I know they only get a certain amount they can do, but like it becomes more and more antiquated by the week. But for people who are just casual football fans who support their team and they don't really care about an awful lot else, this game would have completely passed them by because it was a routine kind of 1-0 win. Although Brentford did have a lot of early chances and perhaps could have made it interesting. But it was super important for Man City to get back on the horse because although they've been in brilliant form and they've only dropped 2 points recently against Chelsea, the standard is so high now that you really have to get yourself back up there. That game in hand they absolutely had to win it because it's just a massive psychological blow if they don't. And so they did get it done. I particularly liked the endeavour that Brentford showed from the off, which is exactly how I think the team should start against Man City.
Yeah, it was very similar to how they beat them last season as well, wasn't it?
Was.
Just waiting for their chances.
But what always seems to happen is if you have a team like that who dominate the ball, pull you all over the place, make it tough, and for those people who haven't even played football casually, trust me when I tell you, it's much harder without the ball because you do all the running. They just get knackered. And with Man City, it feels a bit like, unless it's going to be like a Halley's Comet event, where, they go out, it's 0-0 or whatever, or Brentford nick one, they're always going to get a goal at some point.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about the circumstances of this game, though, are that the goal came from such a clear and obvious mistake, really. It's really unfortunate that Eye has fallen over. I suppose part of that might be the fatigue that comes from chasing them so much. But it's interesting to see City not playing in a particularly convincing way, because they weren't maybe as as penetrative as they usually are. Obviously, they've still come away with 3 points. There's the old cliche about winning when you're not playing well, which they've very much ticked that box last night. And I think it's just sort of frustrating, isn't it, in terms of the title race, that they've not dropped those 2 points there. I think it's just a lot more interesting if City are playing catch up, because we know how they motor into this incredible kind of like this gear at the turn of the year where they put these massive long winning runs together. And I think we're all kind of sitting here thinking, well, that's not necessarily going to happen this time just because it's happened so many times.
But they've won 12 in their last 13 games.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So I think this was an opportunity there, certainly. For that,
do you reckon when no one's looking? It's a game that's not on telly and no one knows it's happening.
Maybe they've just
got a good chance here.
Like Newcastle and Steve Bruce.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember, they just weren't that bothered. You kept saying, give it some welly when you're not on the telly, if I remember rightly. Yeah. But yeah, there was a real lack of welly, actually, from City last night. But again, they're never going to be like this for that long. So it does feel like one they kind of not got away with. But I've seen a bit of reaction from their supporters online saying that it felt a bit nervy, and it's been a little bit like that lately. And they don't maybe feel as invincible as usual. But again, they are very rarely unconvincing for very long.
They're a victim of their own success a little bit. They've raised the quality so high in the Premier League that other teams are starting to take the mantle, and then coming off the back of winning so many things last season, it's going to be difficult to get back up there. My highlight of the match was definitely Ederson doing a flying catch from a header. The Neville Southall, I call it, because he just always used to do that. Yeah, every keeper usually just paws it away, palms it out of harm's way. But I just like to see every now and again a goalkeeper remembering that you can actually keep hold of the ball.
So they don't seem to. I mean, with that one, I guess it was quite a tame effort, though, wasn't it? So he was
in the corner, though. I think he was at full stretch, wasn't he?
Is it full stretch?
Yeah.
Your idea of full stretch might be different to mine.
My little face and my little arms, full stretch.
Let's have a little stretch out later and we'll see what it means. But a lot of the time now they don't try to catch, because I think they think if they drop the ball, it's a soft impact, and so it's going to fall, and it's going to be easier for someone to nip in there and get their fucking scraps, which you've got to do in football. So they try to punch. But in that case, it was lovely. It was one for the cameras. What I like about it is he caught it when the whole body was in midair. It's nice to see. But just to follow up on Jim's point as well, like, they won the game. They're winning games.
Sure.
And, if it wasn't for an amazing goal line clearance from that Oscar Bob chance, who just looks like he's got ice in his veins. I mean, he doesn't. First of all, I still don't fully appreciate that he's a real player.
What are they doing in Norway?
Yeah, I know.
Why weren't they doing it before?
I know. And the second one was Phil Foden went on amazing, and it was almost one of the best goals of the season. And he was so annoyed with himself that he didn't finish it, that he immediately legged it, sprinted straight over to the corner to take the corner. So I think he just thought, if I just get out of the way, people are going to forget that I should have finished that.
If I score from a corner now,
it'll
be really impressive.
But Flecken, who's every time I see Flecken, and I cannot emphasise this enough, I couldn't see him last night, but when I can see him, he makes a billion saves a game. And then last night, towards the end, Brentford was still in the game, of course, last minute. They get a corner, Flecken goes up, and he gives fucking Carl Walker 6 of the best studs down his shin.
Not the only one.
Nice stuff.
Like Neil Maupay and Carl Walker sort of renewed their hostilities again, didn't they?
And I think when you've got the sort of chaotic personal life that Carl Walker's got, you do attract it's like a maelstrom. You do attract a lot of attention.
In the last game, apparently, he said to the referee's assistant, or it might have been the referee, something like, "He's saying things about my kids." It's like, you know what? You probably shouldn't be doing that, Neil Maupay. Regardless of what you've read.
Neil Maupay he takes that part of his game really seriously. You've got to say that. He does.
What's the best thing you could say about a child on the field of play and not get in trouble for it?
Yeah, I don't think you should.
I mean?
Yeah,
I think your children are high achievers. Yeah. How dare you?
Congratulations on the recent math test for little Tommy.
That's a threat. That's
worse.
a threat.
That's way worse.
That's what I'm trying to make out. Show you can't say anything and not sound terrible.
You literally can't say anything.
No,
for crying out loud.
You can't say anything these days.
Yeah, well, you can't. Pep Guardiola can't say anything these days because he's apologised to Calvin Phillips for making public comments about his weight. Phillips said that the comments were a big knock to his confidence. Pep Guardiola, I think it's quite nice to see a manager sort of go, you know what, on reflection, that's probably something that probably should have remained behind closed doors. He said, I never before said something in a press conference that I didn't say to the player. I'm sorry. Once in 8 years is not bad, but I'm so sorry. I apologise to him. I do apologise. I'm so sorry.
Sounds like you've been late for a meeting.
I'm never late for a meeting. How dare you? I do apologise. I'm so sorry. I turn into Hugh Grant from the North East. Yeah. Is this nice to see a manager kind of going, put your hands up instead of being defensive and kind of backing yourself into a corner and doubling down? It's just nice to see.
There is, there's a little bit of singling down at least, isn't there? Because he's saying, I've never done it before. Look,
I've had my one.
I will apologise, but I also want credit for all the times I didn't do it.
That's fair.
Fair.
But can I, on a semi-serious note, I mean, it isn't ideal when people in authority who are in charge of or looking after professional athletes who are young men or women comment publicly on this kind of stuff. We've seen it be hugely problematic for people's mental health in different sports. It shouldn't be any different in football. Clearly, players will have a weight range within that they need to be in to be optimum in terms of their performance. That absolutely should, out of respect, be a private matter. And the moment anyone, whether it's a manager or a co-player or a chairman, whatever it is, starts talking about other human beings' weight, it's, I think, like hugely problematic, and it should never happen. I actually think there should be quite big fines for it. But I like that he apologised. I understand that Guardiola probably does feel genuine contrition about it, and it's not something that should happen. I think it's very, very difficult these days in the public eye for athletes anyway, let alone have to worry about that, because these weight issues, they seem to be a lot of the time they seem to be ascribed to like female athletes, right?
Yes.
And we understand why, but men can suffer from this kind of stuff as well, and a lot of the time they're in this case they're young men, and they need to have their mental health protected, and they don't want everyone knowing that stuff, because ultimately it can cause huge problems. I mean, even if Calvin Phillips is privately above his weight range for what he needs to be with the medical staff at Man City or West Ham or whatever, still an incredible athlete, and he needs to make sure he doesn't have any kind of thought distortions around that. So it's important that the apology was made, I think.
The term overweight as well is a bit of a misnomer there, isn't it, as well? Because it's essentially over his target weight for a very specified set of parameters, really.
Whip his top off and he is in no way overweight.
Absolutely, exactly. So it's a unfortunate misuse of language, and perhaps it's something to think about in terms of how they even describe such a thing.
I think they should sack him.
I think they should.
I think he should be banned from being a Premier League manager.
And you've got and he's got to be filled with suet until he's massive, big Pep Guardiola. How'd you like that, Pep
They've got
Guardiola?
to turn him into a foie gras.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine?
Augustus
He'd be
Gloop
fine
him.
with it. He'd be fine.
Augustus Gloop. You've now got to spend a week in Willy Wonka's factory. That's what you've got to do.
Oh, we started so well there.
I mean, also, I think like the physique of the modern footballer has got to the point where actually the sort of the riddled thin bodies are actually quite not quite as useful as they could be. Sometimes you need a bit of weight behind you. Especially working in certain positions.
Is this where you put the disclaimer in about how you've got literally no medical qualifications whatsoever, and you're not? And this is
no,
not
I don't care. We're not bound by any of these rules. I think we are actually technically bound by Ofcom, but what are you going to do? Anyway, on the topic of Man City, fantastic. Tom Huddleston scored against their under-21s from Man United's under-21s.
That's great.
He's 37, Jim.
He is, yeah. There's this new thing, isn't there, where you can have a sort of an older player who is a kind of player
coach. He's a coach. Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of these situations. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm all for a retro footballer.
You can have a handful of players over age, but what clubs are doing now is that they're having a player run their academy who's also had a brilliant career to kind of guide and help and be like a mentor to different players and stuff. But there is something kind of. Is there something kind of quite tragic about it? I don't imagine he celebrated the goal.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision for you to make as a professional, isn't it? It might be that, all right, well, this is a one last big contract I didn't expect.
He's a coach as well. He's a coach as well.
Of course, and it's a way into that. But it really depends what your ambitions are for the tail end of your career, isn't it?
Well, I think it's. I mean,
he's different in each individual's case.
At the end of the day, I mean, he's a coach, and you can coach better if you're on the field. So why not indulge? It's more the social media team of Man United putting that out with his
he's probably
old
not that
man
happy about
face
that,
on
is
it.
he?
He probably wouldn't be, to be honest.
And he's the thing about Huddleston. Loved watching him play. He's a real Rolls Royce. Technically, so good.
Great passer.
Yeah, brilliant passer of the ball. Great striker of the ball. Couldn't really get around the pitch at the top level very well. But that didn't limit his career really, because he had a really great career, and it's great to see him doing that kind of stuff. And I'm sure he's got a lot to offer. But I don't imagine he'd be advertising the fact that he's doing that kind of thing, because obviously he never played for Man United, so it's a bit like
it looks really weird.
It's a bit cosplay, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a bit like cosplaying as being a Man United player. So
it might be that a lot of other players see this and sort of go, "Oh, I fancy a post-career career." Maybe
I'd definitely do it. I think
Savages
would
would be back. Savage would be back in the
I'm not
in
sure
the dream
what he's got to
Man
offer
United team
in terms of brains or brawn. Yeah. Did you hear that story that Dean Windass told about Robbie Savage?
Dean Windass, yep.
Quite recently, where he said that Robbie Savage, I guess it was Leicester against Hull when Windass was playing there, and he said that they had a game at Leicester, and they had a big old bust up on the pitch. Like Savage was winding them up the whole time and all the rest of it, and Windass was fuming. And the game finished, and Windass, cut a long story short, Windass went basically looking for him. I want to chin the guy, right? And he finally finds out where he is. He's in the players' lounge. And he goes up to Robbie Savage. He's about to give him both barrels. And Robbie Savage goes, "Oh, hi, Dean. Good to see you again. Have you met my mum and dad?" And his mum and dad are in the players' lounge next to him, right? So Dean Windass is like, "Well, I can't do anything here. You know, his mum and dad are here." So he's like, he just shakes his head, says, "Yeah, good game," and walks off. And as he's walking out to his car, one of Leicester City's players goes, "You know that isn't his mum and dad, don't you?"
That's good stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so he just wriggled out of it.
He's owed one. He's owed one then. And anyone who gets to him first can do it.
Yeah, I think Windass should go after him now. I'd do a podcast series on that.
Yeah.
He
Get
hunts him down.
Him and his son, Windass and son, goes out in search of Savage.
Like Minder. It's like Minder.
Yeah.
And Josh Windass is the what's the guy's name who does the theme tune and everything as well?
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. The actor who plays the young guy in Minder. It could be him.
Okie dokie. Well, elsewhere in the Champions League, Marko Arnautovic came off the bench to score the winner for Inter against Atletico. We had a PSV 1, Dortmund 1 match as well. Arnautovic, I do still love that man, and I love watching him play football, and I'm just happy that he's happy, very briefly, after coming off the bench.
My legs hurt watching him make up the ground for that shot. It just looks so stiff. Like he will be feeling that today.
He looks like the Stick Man. You know that kids book?
Yeah.
The Stick Man.
Or like a reboot of Fido Dido.
From what I can make out, he's having almost like an Indian summer to his career at Bologna and scoring goals like a mid-table Serie A club, which is a lovely old job. On loan at Inter and having an impact in the Champions League.
It's
quite nice.
At this stage as well.
The games last night, though, I watched the Inter game, and it was just pretty thin gruel.
It was very dull.
And I didn't like Atletico's kit because it's the first time I've seen a kit that's essentially exactly the same shade of green as the pitch. It's very, very odd to watch.
Yeah, the most enjoyable thing about it, so I started watching that game as well because I would say Antoine Griezmann is possibly my favourite non-Vardy footballer currently active.
You're a big fan of the Vardy family, generally.
Generally, absolutely. I love what they stand for. And so I thought, Griezmann's always enjoyable. And I was kind of sleeping a little bit on the fact that Rodrigo de Paul is now essentially like cosplaying as Griezmann. They look really, really similar. He's done his hair in the same way. He was Messi's bouncer in the World Cup and generally is for Argentina. And maybe he's kind of fulfilling a similar role here.
When I first saw him, I thought it was Griezmann.
Same.
It was a flash shot of him, and I thought, it's Griezmann. He looks, okay. But it's not actually him.
It's not, but it's Rodrigo de Paul. We know that Argentinian players like the dark arts. Perhaps they're embracing the old switcheroo.
Could be. Body swap comedy. You can't get enough of him.
Well, Interman paid tribute to their former defender Andreas Bremer before the game, who died, was it yesterday, age 63. Very sad to hear. Obviously, one of the most two-footed footballers of his generation, and obviously a big mainstay in the Italia 90 squad. He was
an incredible player, and for given the rivalry, particularly at that time between England and West Germany, and particularly in that tournament, he was still one who was like fucking cool. And
Yeah.
you know, we talk a lot about fullbacks and how attacking they are and how much of an effect they have on the game these days. And in an era where that wasn't necessarily the case, Braymer was sensational. He could. People say he wasn't as good a defender. I heard Pat Nevin on the radio the other night saying that he played against him. He thought he wasn't as good defensively, and obviously Pat Nevin was far better than me. But say again.
What a tribute!
I know. No, but he was a nice tribute overall. He was just saying that, he wasn't known for that. But I just thought he was brilliant all round. As a kind of 9-year-old watching the World Cup and being gutted that England got knocked out, I still loved Braymer, and I could not say that about basically every other member of that squad.
I remember that team feeling invincible, like it would have been impossible for us to get past them as close as it came, and he was a sort of epitome of that. Just such an engine, and genuinely ambidextrous as well, in a way that's rare in not just in football but in life.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are too young to remember this, he was ultimately a left back or left-sided player who predominantly used his left foot. But in the World Cup final, he scored the winning penalty with his right foot.
And he often took penalties with his
It was
right
right in the
foot.
bottom corner as well.
And he would take free kicks and corners with his left. But he could and did play on either side as well. I don't think it was that he had a particularly strong right foot. I think he was one of those rare people that is genuinely two-footed.
I think you said left foot for power, right foot for placing.
There we
Right,
go.
yeah.
That's nice. What a nice luxury to have that is.
Indeed.
No, right. I
Fantastic.
just like anything. I'd like any of mine to do.
I'm grateful
to
I
do
can
anything
combine
useful.
them for walking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, a Luke de Jong penalty and PSV a draw at home to Dortmund. Before the match, de Jong responded to being included in a list of the 100 worst Premier League strikers. How could I be a flop when I only played 12 matches for Newcastle? I mean, your lungs were a flop. You literally had a collapsed lung at one point, I seem to recall.
Your lungs were a flop.
Your lungs were a
Awful
flop.
fan base. Look awful.
Pete, what are your
Memories of
opinions and
Luke de Jong?
of Luke de Jong?
Very few. There's only 12 of them, clearly. But he just he'd come back and then he'd get injured. He'd come back and get injured. I mean, I would say at that point, the Newcastle United recovery involved Sulo bins that you sat in, filled with ice.
Yeah, it did.
So
Yeah.
there was
And
that.
If this is the list that the Daily Mail did, then first a couple of points to make on it. One is that Josie Altidore is number one, above Ali Dia, which is a bit unfortunate.
That's outrageous.
A professional footballer.
But I guess
versus-
their defence, he scored 2 Premier League goals in 70 Premier League games. But they also do a list of the breakdown of which club has the most of the 100 worst strikers in Premier League history.
Oh, okay.
Guess which club's top?
Chelsea?
It's obviously Newcastle.
Is it?
With
Wow.
14.
Really?
And West Ham
Wow.
are second with 12. West Ham obviously famously have found it very, very difficult to buy strikers who've been consistent. It's just, the top 5 clubs, it's Newcastle, West Ham, Sunderland, Crystal Palace, and then Manchester City. Chelsea are below Portsmouth, disappointing.
Right. Well, I would say that Newcastle, for the record, had a few players that went elsewhere and did very well. So I don't think it doesn't tell the whole picture.
Well, so it's Newcastle's fault, is what you're saying. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they ruined them. They
Could not get the stink
yeah.
off.
It's not the it's not the
Get in
players'
that
fault.
bin.
They are tainted forever.
Put some hot water in that bin, for crying out loud. Right, we'll wrap things up for the first half. Coming up in the second half, loads of stuff. Porto versus Arsenal, more managerial merry-go-round, and a kind of Daily Star spotted feature from Luke.
If you're asking me whether Harry the Hornet, who I presume is the mascot, should dive in that way, I think it's disgraceful.
We'll miss
please
him. We'll
come
miss him
back.
in the game, won't we?
We will.
Great guy.
On Monday night, Andy Brassel and myself recorded Ramble Reacts following Everton Crystal Palace's 1-1 draw. I massively encourage you to listen to that, even though the match wasn't all that. You'll hear Andy's opinion on whether Oliver Glasner is the right man for Crystal Palace. My opinion on James Tarkowski's attempt to flirt with his wife. Astonishing footage from
It's
Amazon.
amazing. It is amazing.
Ridiculous. And also detailed analysis of whether Ray Lewington should be wearing shorts in February in the Liverpool area. You can find that episode directly below this one in your podcast app, so go listen now. Luke Moore, you saw Steve Parish and Oliver Glasner having a meeting yesterday in a posh hotel in the west of London.
That story's grown legs since I sent a WhatsApp to producer Finn.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I saw them having a meeting. Like,
Right.
I saw them in a hotel at a table together, and Steve
That's
Parish.
worse.
That sounds
Makes
like
it
a
sound like
meeting.
they're having a romantic day.
Well, they might have been.
All right,
That's all right, isn't it?
fine.
2024,
right,
mate.
innit?
Grow up. If it was a meeting, it kept being interrupted by Steve Parish repeatedly. So here's the thing about people who work in football that I've occasionally been adjacent to. Right, they're always on the phone. Always.
Yeah, a lot of phones. Yeah.
And they always wear clothes too tight for them. That's the two things. So it doesn't matter how old you get in football. I mean, there are exceptions to this. Ray Lewington would be an exception. Roy Hodgson would be an exception. The old school don't, but the guys now who are kind of in modern football, but they're older, they all wear clothes too tight for them. So Steve Parish was wearing a suit that was probably, in my estimation, 4 sizes too small for him.
4 sizes too small.
Oh, it was
That's
ridiculous.
Impressive.
It was like a Pete
Shrink
Donaldson suit jacket, but even shorter than that. Trousers didn't get anywhere near his ankles. Those trainers with the white soles. And he kept leaving the table to go and take a phone call over and over again. And I mentioned to the guys that I was there on the table, about 2 or 3 tables away, and I could have got some more intel, but after a while, fucking opposite me, Jason Statham sat down. So I got distracted. I know, he sat down the table opposite me, so I was very, very distracted.
So are we looking at a possibility of Jason Statham being the number 2 at Palace, do you think?
Could be. The thing about Jason Statham, when you see him in the flesh, and he lives near me, so I do see him fairly regularly, he's fucking hard. He just looks like the hardest bloke. His face looks like it's made out of rock.
He looks granity.
Oh, massive. I think he's obviously got the old martial arts behind him, and he's tough. I just think I'd love to have seen him beat the shit out of about 4 people in there.
Yeah.
Not
in
me,
Ham Yard
one of them
Hotel.
not being me. I'd love to see him beat the shit out of Steve Parish and Oliver Glasner.
Yeah, in the Ham Yard Hotel.
Don't name the hotel.
Why? You're
I don't
allowed to
want
be in the
people to
hotel.
go
You don't.
It must be disappointing to be around Statham and that not happen. Like, anywhere where you are with him and it's calm must have a big, like, Act 1 vibe.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
surely
How's
there's
this going to
going to be an
escalate?
inciting incident anytime soon.
I went up to him. I said, turn the table over, mate. And he just didn't do anything.
Is that the most exciting thing? I'd never want to see your action feature film. A man turn the
That's
table
how it
turner.
starts, isn't it?
That's how it starts.
Oh, you've
Just
turned the
push over a
table over,
table.
and you've accidentally hit the toe of a big henchman,
Yeah.
and then things fucking happen, don't they? And things
Yeah.
I
happen.
don't think
I
the
agree with
henchman
Pete.
shouldn't be getting involved. The only time a henchman gets involved is when the big boss man not the big boss man, but the boss man tells you that you're allowed to have a fight. The henchman doesn't make his own decisions, surely.
Well, that's true, actually. He's just
Unless they're a rogue henchman,
he's just a puppet.
Yeah.
which Statham is perfect for.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
would watch a movie called Rogue Henchman with
Yeah.
Statham in it.
He's a
Well, you think
henchman.
he's a henchman, but he's actually got more about him.
Yes.
And what I wanted to be is I wanted to be that guy in that meme where there's that big fight in that chicken shop and he's just calmly eating his chicken.
Calmly
I
eating
wanted
his
to get
chicken,
stuck into my
kicking.
cheese and onion toasty, which I had for lunch, while they're all kicking off. That's what I wanted to happen.
So-
But
so
sadly, it
no-
didn't happen.
So no insider knowledge about how the Crystal Palace team is going to set
Well,
up.
no, it would have been interesting.
Transfer window.
The only one that would have been interesting, mate, is if Oliver Glasner had been linked to the job, and then I saw them, and I could have told everyone the jobs. He's already had it. He's already got it. So I mean, it's irrelevant. It's a total irrelevance.
A little insider thing about the Stack HQ calendar. Luke said Luke WFH, which usually means working from home, but in this case he was working from Ham.
Working from Ham.
Working
I was working from
Ham.
It's a great it's a great hotel. As you know, Pete, people who listen
great
to the Luke
hotel.
and Pete show will know. A top tip about when you're cutting about London and you've got meetings or whatever and you're working, go to a hotel. They can't stop you because they're
They can't
worried that
stop
you're
you.
staying there and they don't want to piss you off.
Get in the
toilet's
room.
always great, and
Yeah.
there's always free Wi-Fi. Don't
There
cut
is,
about
yeah.
in a crap Costa. Go to a nice hotel. They can't stop you. Some of them do stop you.
No, and Enagawa over the road from Ham Hotel is a great Japanese restaurant as well.
Good to know.
So there we go. Elsewhere, Andy and myself did speak about Steve Bruce apparently being interested in becoming the next South Korea manager, as he's keen to move overseas for his next job. Just closer to the cricket, isn't he, really? He just wants to get closer to the cricket. Philip Mannon X says, managing in a country where one of the staple dishes is cabbage, you've got to admire it.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Kimchi all over the gaff.
My favourite tweet from one of our followers, greeting this news, was Justin, who said, it's going to be some long nights ahead for Alex Bruce on Ancestry.com.
I'm shocked that this is of interest to Steve Bruce. I thought I knew the man. I thought I could predict his thoughts. I did not think it would involve such a huge kind of cultural adventure as going to manage South Korea, but he's up for it.
I think it's a massive breakdown in communication. I think he's had a conversation with his agent, had a monthly catch-up.
My career's gone south.
Yeah, I'm looking for a new career move. And he's like, and Q, I smell a sitcom.
Yeah.
Q a madcap rush to the airport. Steve Bruce thinks he's going back to Malaga. All of a sudden, it's Korean Airlines.
Oh,
Could I do it
young
remotely?
Jose?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, he still will be playing his son, won't he?
He will. Yeah.
Yes. It doesn't matter how old he gets, that guy's always going to get a starting berth. Recently sacked Sunderland manager Michael Beale has been caught by some internet sleuths, guys, using an anonymous Twitter account to post propaganda defending himself. It's Elon Musk.
It's incredible.
X.
It's some incredible internet sleuthing. It's by the Second Tier podcast, right?
Yeah, I think they're in conjunction with the Sunderland fan site. Yeah, it's. I mean, I kind of feel like this stuff must happen a lot, and I think Michael Beale's probably been quite sloppy. And the reason I think
you've got a burner, haven't you?
I haven't, mate.
Do you
know? Have any idea how much I hate Twitter? I would not be subjected.
Won't even call it by its rightful name.
Exactly, I won't. That's how much disrespect I've got for it. But I told you guys before, I was on TalkSport once with a pundit. I can't actually remember who it was now, and he was getting texts from Alex McLeish saying, "Can you keep mentioning my name on the show today because I really want a job?" And I think it's so competitive out there, and I think they're so addicted to it, managers and all the rest of it, that they just desperately want work. And I think that I reckon a lot of these guys do this. And I just think Michael Beale's been particularly sloppy. Do you want to explain, Pete, what he's actually been doing for those who haven't seen it?
Yeah, I mean, he's been on the Twitter, sometimes late at night. He's got his own Twitter page called player_ID, which is apparently Beale in disguise, so to speak. And he's now deleted it, or someone's now deleted the player_ID. But right throughout the last few years, it's been posting pro-Mick Beale tweets, which is very much right up our street. Defending him for not shaking a player's hand at the weekend, retweeting people defending Beale. If Sunderland sacked Beale, who in their right mind would want that job, etc. And going even further back, it posted stuff from when he was in charge of Rangers as well, screenshots of the league table and stuff. It's good stuff. I think Aaron Corley has kind of set him up for a fall, basically explaining that give Michael Beale new business, player_ID a follow, and check out the website. You'll not regret it. This was
That's
back
the
in
smoking gun, is it?
2017. That's the smoking gun. That's the piece of evidence that we needed.
Can I play devil's advocate here, Pete? And I think you're the best person to ask about this. Is that the worst thing a 43-year-old man can get up to on the internet?
No, probably not. And I'm a 42-year-old man, I'll have you know.
No, but he's 43.
I know. I just presume that's what you're asking me. I work with a few people who used to retweet and tweet very positive stuff about themselves.
I reckon it's all over the entertainment industry.
As radio DJs. Yeah, but it really saw them in good stead. Like, they were regarded as having a bit of a following. And then you kind of probe that following and you sort of realise, maybe it's not as strong as we think. Maybe they're just really busy with burner accounts. Still working. Still getting in that money.
I think the most damning thing for Michael Beale is that in one of the tweets he talks about the fans being really entitled. So it's a really interesting insight into what managers actually think about the fans of the clubs they manage, because you're never going to get that any other way.
Moyes has done that, though. Hodgson said that. They both said it.
Yeah, all right, but they've couched it in vaguely critical language.
Talking about how good they are.
Overtly critical language because he thinks it's anonymous. And the thing is, right, this will come up in his next job interview. Yeah. But how on earth
he ain't getting another job interview? He's the only job he's getting now after this is he's going to get a job down, and I don't mean any disrespect here, but he's going to get a job where he's going to be a big name for that level. People are going to go, fucking hell, we're going to get Michael Beale, and it'd be like conference or something.
Ross County?
Oh, that'd be brilliant. By the way, I hooked up with Derek Adams on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I'm glad he said LinkedIn there.
Yeah. Well, see how it goes.
Ham Yard Hotel. Do you want to go upstairs?
For?
Yeah, I want to get Derek Adams involved in the Ramble somehow. He's the right guy for us.
What would we do with him?
I want him to come on.
What would you do with the Derek Adams?
I want him to say, I've listened to football podcasts a million miles better than this.
Elsewhere, in other places north of the border, to be exact. Neil Warnock has signed Junior Hoilett for Aberdeen until the end of the season. You love to see Canadians going cold places. It's where they live, it's where they exist, it's where they're going to flourish.
Like Huskies, aren't they?
Yeah,
just
exactly.
rolling around in the snow, just loving it.
Bloody lovely time.
I like that with this. So Junior Hoilett has played, and it's not his real name, by the way. You know, his real name's David Hoilett.
Right, okay, fine.
I don't know where the junior nickname comes from, but just as an aside, he's played a handful of games for Vancouver Whitecaps last year. And the great thing about this is Junior Hoilett's had a good career. You know, I'm not slating him. He's an international player and all the rest of it. He played at the top level. But there's a very big feeling here that Neil Warnock just wants some company up in Aberdeen of someone he knows. He just wants someone he knows.
Days.
Yeah, just wants to be. It's a long way away from home, as we know. Aberdeen's a very, very isolated place. He just wants a bit of a familiar face around, doesn't he, to help him? And so
someone to carpool with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's fair enough.
You know, he's still got a Filofax with all his contacts as well.
Definitely.
He's been thumbing that for a fortnight.
I think it's an old school Rolodex.
Oh, yeah. That's what I meant.
It around.
Yeah.
Did you? Is that what you meant?
I did mean a Rolodex.
Because you said Filofax, but you made the motion for Rolodex. Yeah.
What's the Rolodex? Hang on, a Filofax is like a little kind of it's a little book isn't it?
Rolodex spins on like a apparatus.
Well, there you go. Arsenal's first Champions League knockout game since 2017 takes place tonight at 8 p.m. Porto versus Arsenal. Jim, you excited? Bit of trepidation in your soul about this one?
Both of those things, absolutely, yeah. Porto aren't in the best of form at the moment, but we came unstuck against Sporting in the Europa League last season. You can't underestimate anyone at this point. And also, Mikel Arteta doesn't have the best record in knockout competitions, so it's something to be wary of. They need to be really, really focused on this. The Athletic did a rundown of Arsenal's last 6 or 7 exits at the last 16 stage.
Why did you read it?
I was just curious to see how far we done come.
Part of your therapy process.
Good God, I wanted to reach back through time and just slap them all with a big frying pan. It was genuinely quite sort of unsettling to read back through it. I want to avoid that at all costs. But I think there is still this kind of spectre of that hanging over Arsenal in the Champions League, and it's something they have to dispel. But I am looking forward to it. It's been a long time, obviously, since we've in relative terms since we've been in a knockout game in the Champions League. So I'm excited, and I'll be on Ramble Reacts as well. So if it all goes terribly and you support Spurs, you'll have a nice time. There's something for everyone.
I'll just let you know. I think there's several Arsenal fans out there who would take some comfort from listening to you if Arsenal do lose. I don't think it's just Spurs fans. I think it's everyone.
I think we can all get a slice of that.
This game and this show makes a mockery of us all, as we always say. What's good for the Ramble isn't good for your club. I personally would quite like Arsenal to lose badly tonight, so I can listen to that. Yeah, but it's nothing personal. I just like to listen to you. Go over it. You know what I mean?
I like to listen to
We have to all admit here that we like, nothing serious, but we do like a good bit of moderate suffering from our friends.
And we also like watching the big teams fail, right? That's one of the things that I think a lot of fans don't understand. If they're doing well and their team starts getting criticised and they sort of kick off about it line. Arsenal fans do it, City fans do it, Liverpool fans do it. You can't be liked when you're doing well. You just can't have it.
Nah, it's not part of the fabric.
You have to just accept it.
Mine does extend beyond that, though. You know when you really badly hurt your elbow? That was a funny story.
Oh, when I really badly hurt my elbow. Which time?
I'm just saying that you can get a good amount of pleasure with some
straight up Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
Of course, if it's a funny story.
The Germans should invent a word for it, shouldn't they? I'm looking forward to the game tonight. I think it's Jim's, to be semi-serious, as I say. It is a good measure. It's a good kind of acid test for them. I think what Arteta's done at Arsenal is brilliant, no question about that. And he's really kind of made them believe that not just that they can achieve, but the standards that he has set are so high, and the players have had to fall into line behind that or get the fuck out of town, right? And that's really something that shouldn't be forgotten. I mean, he's done it with players, high-profile players already. But there's an element with the Premier League and the way it's structured and the way that the big clubs are, that actually how much are we learning from Arsenal knocking over a load of shitty bottom half of the Premier League teams?
Indeed.
Not that much. So to go away to a club who perhaps don't have the budget but are storied in this competition, who have won this competition, and obviously from here on in for them in the Champions League, Arsenal, it just gets harder and harder. That's a really interesting thing because it's a real fucking test. It's a different type of test as well.
Absolutely. I think that the last few games have been very useful in terms of the rhythm and forging those connections that have been growing over the season in terms of the fluency of Arsenal's play.
And they've been good against the big teams in the Premier League.
They have been
right?
good against the big teams. And also, an interesting thing that happens a lot is that teams set up with essentially 11 men behind the ball to try and frustrate. And Porto aren't going to do that. No one in the Champions League is really going to do that. So it's going to be a really different type of test. Also, it's quite dangerous sometimes when a team aren't going so well in the league. It's a bit of a holiday from it, and especially if you go into this game as the sort of relative underdogs, there's the element of there not being so much to lose. It's an ideal level of opponent, I think, at this point. If Arsenal were facing a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid or whatever, it'd be a very, very different story now, very, very different set of pressures. But that said, you've got to make sure that you put it away, and you've got to respect the opponent. Evan Nilsson's a very good player. They've got players that can hurt you. But yeah, I am just excited about it in a really quite little boyish way as well, which is to be embraced.
Definitely.
That's what it's all about, right?
Definitely
That's why we're here.
And did Rio Ferdinand make the game in the MP?
Rio Ferdinand ended up on a Ryanair flight out to Porto with some Arsenal fans.
It's a great leveler, isn't it? When the big highfalutin types have to get the Ryanair
when
flight.
There's only one flight.
You can imagine the conversation. Sorry to cut in, Pete, but you can imagine the conversation. Rio's going to be speaking to the admin person, the booker at TNT, and they're going to have to call him and say, I could only get you on the first thing in the morning Ryanair flight, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And Rio's going to have kicked off. But he probably these days, he probably won't kick off. This is why it's great, right? Because there's no way on earth he's flying Ryanair when he's a player.
He did have extra leg room.
He's
at least managed to get
well,
that.
He was at the front, but that does mean, as a tall man and as a man who's got a bit of bunts, he might be paying that extra 12 to 20 quid to get that extra leg room. But I would say that just makes you more visible. If you'd have sat at the back, no one would have noticed. You could have gone about your day doing Rio Ferdinand things in the back of the Ryanair flight, and nobody would have noticed.
And I think you should always be able to suffer through a couple of hours. It's not a long flight. In an economy seat.
Porto's about what's that? 3 hours?
2.5, probably.
Not far.
Cracking on.
Yeah,
but then you've got the Ryanair probably late at the terminal, and you're probably not. There's probably no VIP ushering through. It's risky.
And the point is, it's just very, very different to when you're a top level player and how you get treated, right? I mean, he's going to be very, very different. To be fair to him, he seemed to kind of embrace it, and I think he's probably like I've done a little bit of work with him, and he's a very, very personable guy. I'm not saying he's a terrible guy or he's a big time Charlie, whatever. I don't believe him to be so, but it's just quite funny that he got a load of stick from a load of fans.
He handled it really well, to be fair to him.
Yeah. So he basically got told. Arsenal fans have taken issue with the fact that he says that Saka isn't quite world class yet. And what Ferdinand has done, he's like doubled down on that, hasn't he? He could have just said,
That's his brand,
He said he means that he's, we've not seen him do it in the late stages of the Champions League.
Well, he's not playing.
Well, exactly, yeah. And he's also got 3 goals and 4 assists in 5 games in the Champions League this season. So, it's a bit of a silly argument.
I think this is a conversation we can't realistically have without Marcus here because he'd be gutted. But it depends on how you define world class, right? Some people would say world class, they need to be in a squad, a world 11 or squad for their position. That's it. So there's only 2 world-class players or whatever. I wouldn't say that.
Bit of an ethereal thing anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess also he's probably had a more successful international career than Rio Ferdinand.
No.
So if he reckons that he is...
Well,
he has.
I mean, he's reached a final.
He's got further.
Ferdinand's got loads more caps, though.
He's got further, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, true. I guess it depends how you judge it. It's a fair comment.
Thank you. You rode back from getting
I'm not
very angry.
down.
Unbelievable. I was hiding behind...
you can't double down when you've been hanging out with Jason Statham.
I was hiding behind my tiny hands. The Telegraph did a piece about David Raya and his massive hands. Apparently, Raya turned up to Blackburn aged 15 and they were going to reject him for being too short. But then he gets out of his massive pockets, his massive hands, and they instantly gave him a trial as goalkeeper.
Yeah. The way the story's framed makes it sound like he just turned up at the stadium, just like demanding a trial. This little kid from Spain. Like, no, piss off. Where are you going?
Like a Pixar
short stuff. Yeah, exactly. Then out come his cartoon hands.
Removing tyres with one hand.
Right. I've got an idea for a movie. Ratatouille, but it's not a rat. It's a child with gigantic hands. It does say a lot about the media landscape in 2024. This isn't even in the top 50 weirdest things the Telegraph have done.
So he's got massive hands and it hinders him as a chef? No, he's a goalkeeper. He's not a chef.
I love
David Spader hands.
They are, apparently, they were very, very big for his age. Now, do you know what? That is a huge talking point in NFL. When the draft comes round, the combine, and the players have to prove themselves to become professional players and move from college football into NFL, particularly quarterbacks, there's a lot of talk about hand size.
Yeah.
There was something that dominated the news cycles a few years ago. I forget the player now, but it's a quarterback who'd done really well in college football. He hit all the numbers, everyone loved him, and they measured his hands, and it was like, are his hands actually 8.5 inches or are they 9.5 inches? This is really important.
Deflategate, but in the hand.
A deep dive on it. A deep dive, mate. They are obsessed with quarterback hand sizes in the US.
Raya is apparently a size 11, which is the biggest size you can get without them being sort of custom
Especially made.
Apparently.
I didn't even know you got like hand sizes.
I didn't know that either. But have you heard him speak?
No.
He sounds like he's from the Northwest. I was not expecting it.
Nice.
I'm David Raya from Spain.
He's taking the piss out of Ramsdale, is he?
Well, no, he's just been because he was at Blackburn since he was very, very young. So he's been in. He grew up in that area essentially, or spent most of his adult life so far in that area.
Right. Okay. Well, I remember chatting to David Seaman, and he does a lot of work at Arsenal. Apparently, he was having a chat with Ramsdale, and Ramsdale was pointing out that it can't have been rare, but he was pointing out some goalkeeper who has really small feet, and he's laughing at his small feet, which is
I can remember
interesting.
When I worked at the sports shop as a Saturday boy, they used to provide boots for a lot of players. It was like a side business they had, and I remember me and my friend Mark, we packaged up the football boots for the delivery or whatever. It was for Middlesbrough at the time, and we packaged up Janino's boots.
Oh wow! Tiny fella.
They were the smallest boots I'd ever seen. It was. I mean, they must have been about a size 5. It was mad, absolutely mad. And obviously, on the other end of the scale, was it Carlo who had like a ridiculous pair? He had like size 15 or something, didn't he?
Well, your feet never stop growing, do they?
Famously, yeah, exactly. I'm a size 22 now.
Yeah. Elsewhere, Liverpool versus Luton tonight at 7:30. A lot of players are ruled out for this match. And also Sunday's Carabao Cup final against Chelsea. Curtis Jones, Jota, Alisson as well. So that's going to be interesting. Tie. Michael Owen claims that Darwin Núñez's chip goal at the weekend proved that he's not a great striker.
Yeah, it was an interesting... I don't think it's as mad as this sounds, because he was saying that he essentially... went for the hard option, which you're just statistically less likely to score.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you've got loads of material on Owen if you want it. I think if you're an enthusiast who likes to undermine Michael Owen at every turn,
which we are,
you've got more than enough material for that, and I openly encourage you to do so, because he's a risible guy. I don't think this was that bad. I thought it was quite an interesting insight, actually.
It was, but he can't even make a decent point without making it sound like it's a terrible point. It's an incredible skill.
Yeah, it is.
Good stuff. He dresses it up. Xabi Alonso has been heavily linked as Klopp's replacement at Anfield. Has he been seen in a hotel near you, Lucky Moore?
Haven't seen him.
Okay.
Presumably he'd be up in Liverpool, wouldn't he, for that kind of thing? Although a lot of the business probably is done in London, so I'll keep my eyes peeled. So you know, I'm not in that kind of hotel every day or anything.
Okay.
It's probably once a month, probably. So statistically, I'm unlikely to see
You're not going to see him.
But just before you go into the Xabi Alonso things, very quickly from me, you mentioned there the players that Liverpool have got out. I don't know if we can watch tonight's game on the telly, can we? Probably not. Maybe we can.
Well, it depends. I mean, you can always get a Eurostar if you're committed to watching football.
I'll probably think about it.
A great euphemism for illegal websites.
I watched it on the Eurostar.
Eurostar.com.
It's not technically on the TV, but I do think, regardless, I'll tell you what, I'll even go as far as this, and I think Luton have been quite good recently, and they deserve a lot of credit, and we have given them credit on this show. Luton fans, go and pick another 3 Liverpool players at random to remove from the team, and you're still going to get beat.
Yeah,
you're going to get beat, and it's probably going to be an easy beating. That would be my take.
Well, on Xabi Alonso possibly heading to Anfield or somewhere else, Alonso was lined up for the Bayern job as well. Fabrizio Romano breaking has just revealed that Tuchel will leave at the end of the season. So maybe they won't be looking for that stopgap Ole Gunnar Solskjaer solution that reared its head a couple of years ago. I mean, it's bad for the Ramble. What's bad for the Ramble is bad for the world.
We need to see. I mean, just imagine for a second Harry Kane getting his big move to Bayern Munich. They don't win the league, and by the end of the season, be managed by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It's remarkable how football
we're
does
eating
this.
good with the Mourinho rumours. This is something else.
We did. Who would you choose? I'd probably still choose Mourinho.
Oh yeah. In terms of if I was a Bayern fan, I'd choose Mourinho.
No,
of
from
those
the Ramble.
two. If I was me, I would choose Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Especially he's one of the architects of their greatest trauma. It's an incredible thing to even exist as a rumour.
Yeah, so I would take, ideal scenario, I'm taking Mourinho at a Premier League club and Solskjaer at Bayern Munich. If I can't have that, I'd love to see Mourinho at Bayern Munich.
Where's Mourinho landing in the Premier League? in your fantasy?
Arsenal, obviously, because you're
Sure,
here.
of course.
No, I think probably Man United. I think Marcus convinced me of that. We had a big debate about whether Mourinho should be at Chelsea, Man United, and Marcus convinced me that it's just funnier because loads more Man United fans would hate it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Chelsea fans, even the most hard-hearted, could convince themselves that Mourinho's done amazing things, which of course he has at Chelsea, and it's great to have him back. I think they could kind of give themselves a little bit of a talking to. Man United, I don't think can do that. But on the Tuchel thing, I mean, that could be, I mean, the thing about Alonso is he comes across as a very classy guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's already said, as a gentleman's agreement, I'm coming to Liverpool. I loved it there. I want to be there. It's perfect for me and after Klopp. And Jim, you said this to me yesterday. There's something of the evil empire about Bayern Munich, and for Alonso to do what he's about to do with Leverkusen and then just chip off to Bayern Munich would be really, really disappointing. And if it was someone else, maybe. But I think with Alonso, he doesn't come across as that type of character.
If the decision is unmade, it suits Bayern for that uncertainty to be in his mind, right? And we know that they will happily behave in that way. A lot of big clubs do that, try and unsettle their rivals domestically, especially if they're the biggest fish in that pond. See it all the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of gamesmanship here with the timing of Tuchel's announcement as well, trying to just galvanise the Bayern players as best they can and put that idea in Alonso's head. Who knows? But I personally, I would like to see Alonso just stay at Leverkusen, sort of steward them in the Champions League, build on what he's created. I mean, I saw Andre Villas-Boas mentioned as a potential kind of ghost at the feast type figure that Alonso might have in mind, because if you move to, if you make a big move like that really, really quickly, things can be quite unforgiving when you hit the first rocky patch, and every manager goes through rocky patches at every club. It's an inevitable part of it. I personally think it'd be great to see how far he can take Leverkusen, but
I remember when Villas-Boas moved to the Premier League, and Brassel saying at the time it's too early for him, but he can't resist it. Like, it's so much money and it's such glamour.
It would be a hard thing for anyone to turn down.
But from Alonso's point of view, the two landing spots that people talk about with him are Liverpool and Real Madrid, right? And
Bayern as well, obviously.
Yeah, okay, fine. But I mean, he's linked with Liverpool and Real Madrid for obvious reasons, right? As well. And with the Liverpool thing, I think you're right to talk about or mention or allude to the amount of managers who've gone in somewhere after a big legacy manager and it's been tough. But from Alonso's point of view, he may not want to take it for granted. He may not think, if someone comes into Liverpool and they get it right and it's not him, that opportunity's gone for X amount of years, right? So that's how it is. Like when you hear of like people getting opportunities to do something they wouldn't have expected necessarily, because he's still at the start of his management journey, you have to put yourself in their mind and understand it's very difficult. You don't know how long that's going to come, whether that's ever going to come around again. So, yeah, he's got a big decision to make. I take the point about Leverkusen. I do think there's a chance he may do another year there. I wouldn't like to see him at Bayern. I think we can all agree on that.
Dull.
Yeah, I'd like to see Xabi Alonso doing Le Mans in 2028. So,
yeah, because didn't Andre Villas-Boas do Paris-Dakar?
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, I thought did he not try Le Mans as well? Didn't he try?
Right.
Cracking that?
Loves
I don't know.
it.
I might have got that wide of the mark. Did he go to China for a bit? I can't remember.
Yeah, he was in China. He was.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much to you and for listening to the Football Ramble, part of the Aircast Creator Network. Patreon subscribers, do not go anywhere. Keep listening for Ramble Uncut. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Ramble Uncut every single Wednesday. Just get on over to patreon.com/Football Ramble, a thriving community that is just getting better and better with every week. Lukey Moore.
I totally agree. It's a burgeoning, bustling, growing community.
Marketplace of ideas.
Well, if I was going to say something that's sincere about this, I would say that it's amazing because the Discord particularly is an area where people can talk about football and there's no animosity. There's no poisonous stuff. It's like very, very good-natured. People embrace their differences and their different teams they support, and they even put up with some of my dreadful opinions from time to time, which is very good of them. So it's a great place to go. It's a very, very cheap place by today's standards of the internet to go and chat with fellow football fans, not just about the Ramble. There's loads of different stuff you can talk about. And it's well worth doing. It's patreon.com/Football Ramble, as Peter has already said.
Less than a cup of coffee in Hamyard. Also, follow us on X, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Football Ramble. And you can also follow us on Spotify. Thank you very much to you, Lukey Moore.
Thank you. The pleasure's been mine.
And thank you very much to you, Jim Campbell.
You are welcome, Pete Donaldson.
Ta-ta.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.